All right. Hi again, Christian. I am from Blanchet. Today I'll be speaking with my colleague as well, Isabelle, who's our VP of Customer Experience at Blanchet Metrics. Hi, Isabelle.
Hi, Christian. Hi, everyone.
And today, just to tell you a little bit about the how this platform works, and then we'll get sort of right into the content as well. As participants, you've all been muted when you actually came in. There'll be a Q&A at the end of our webinar, and make sure that if you want to ask questions along the way, just drop it in the questions tab on the right-hand side instead of the chat. You could always chat to each other if you wanted to as well, but at the end, when we get to the questions, I'll be looking for those who actually put their questions in the questions folder in the platform itself. And we'll be able to do that and get to all of your questions at the end. I know this is lunchtime, so we'll try to be brief and to the point because we do want to give you a little bit of time before you head back into your probably another Zoom meeting or Teams meeting at 1. So we'll get right underway. Both of us are happy today to present the first edition of our WOW Contact study. For those who may not know, 11 years ago, we started the WOW Index, which basically was all about in-store customer experience. And we were looking at sort of about 20 sort of different dimensions of in-store service and trying to come up with what's an industry and sectoral benchmark that would make sense in the retail industry. 4 years ago, we also started the WOW Digital, which was sort of the online shopping equivalent of our initial WOW study dedicated to in-store service, now dedicated to online shopping. And this year we decided, and I think it was the right year to do it because of the pandemic, we decided to add WOW Contact, which is all about your call center, customer service, after sales service that you offer your clients. And so we wanted to manage sort of this sort of more downstream part of the customer journey with your brand and be able to, again, just like we do with the other WOW studies that we have, is to deliver good, sound, statistically sound sectoral benchmarks that you can use and potentially help you with your decision making. Today, we'll be looking at some of the overall conclusions that we can draw from the study this year. There's a much more detailed report with a lot of multivariate analysis and a lot of statistical information that may be relevant to you. At the very end, Isabelle will tell you how you can get your hands on that detailed report as well. But today we'll sort of look at sort of if we sort of go up one level, what can we get from the study in terms of main insights this year? These are the brands that we basically evaluated. There's over 100 of them. But basically, they go from retail to banking. You have in there as well pharmacy that is represented. You also have telco companies that are part of the study itself. Insurance is there as well. So about 100 major national brands that offer customer service either via a call center, chat options, email, you name it, even social media, where customer contact is also present. And what we wanted to do as well is by sector, allow to sort of have overall benchmarking and key indicators to help you, again, see how you fare against your main competitors, but also how you fare against other sectors where or which could be of inspiration to you. Now, the WOW contact basically is based, or the score of the WOW contact is based on 11 dimensions, and we want to measure how those 11 dimensions of the customer journey has an impact on overall satisfaction with the interaction your customer had with your brand. These 11 dimensions that we measured for all of the 100 brands that we just looked at basically are divided up in sort of 6 key moments of the customer journey when it comes to actually contacting your brand. First is a welcome. What was the wait time before somebody actually answered for the first time, regardless of the platform used? The ability to help a customer regarding their previous experience, regardless of the channel again. Now we get to the listen portion. which is a courtesy, friendliness of staff. It also gets at the rep's ability to articulate and clearly communicate anything about your brand to that customer. Third is the understand, sort of the empathy aspect of the model. Your representative's understanding of the customer needs, be able to confirm, to validate that that representative understands what the customer wants, and also the expertise and knowledge that the representative will actually sort of convey to the customer, him or herself. Then we get to the actual action part of the model. So did I get an answer that was adapted and personalized to me in the context of my request, or did I just get a generic response from the brand? Also, did the representative have a certain degree of autonomy in terms of making a decision about my particular case when I called? Then we get to the conclude portion of the model, which is, was my problem resolved? And also, what was the total, or my perception of the total contact time from the actual moment that I got on the phone or got on the chat to the actual moment where the conversation was over, and hopefully that I got resolution. At the end, we get to the support, which is basically the after sales, after call, after chat follow-up of your request. So these are the 11 dimensions that make up the overall model. And when we use multivariate analysis and key driver analysis to get at which are the 11 dimensions that has the most impact on overall satisfaction, they're highlighted here with that little sort of number 1, number 2, and number 3. So number 1, most important, is resolving the problem during that contact. In the old sort of call center world, we used to say first call resolution. Second most important is getting an answer that is adapted to me personally as a customer, and that I'm not just getting sort of the corporate line, but I'm given information and an answer that is adapted to my individual case. And third, most important, is the follow-up. How do I follow through after the actual call or chat that went on between the brand and the customer? We'll now get into some of the results. I've got some general conclusions, and given Isabelle's expertise in CX, I'll let her sort of tell us how she feels about the results and about sort of the main conclusions we got from the study itself. First thing is, we noticed that this year, probably particularly because of the context of the pandemic, 1 in 4 Canadians actually contacted customer service or after sales support to help them with whatever their query was at the time that they made it. This is extremely high in certain industries or certain sectors within that. For example, eye care, insurance. We actually have close to 1 in 2 Canadians who actually contacted a customer service or after sales support team from those brands. So a lot of people calling in and wanting in, either calling in or coming in to chat with companies, and some of it, maybe not all of it, due to the pandemic context.
Yes, you're right. It's linked or not, because basically, if we go back to the structure of the contact with an organization, we've seen that the resolution is the most impactful one. So bottom line, the takeaway here is customers want to get in touch with you. And mostly if you don't offer like, for example, through your website, which could be a great source of information, or self-service, customers will look to contact you in some ways, whether it's through chats or over the phone. So so basically, in a context like the pandemic, where you can't just show up in the store and ask your questions, and as I said, if the website doesn't do the job also, well, you're going to have to contact your enterprise, your brand, or the company you want to deal with. So although we've seen call centers mainly as the place where billing questions were answered, or even a few years back, it was basically the place where you would call to change your address or cancel your services. But but they were also used as they were staffed according to the ad campaigns we were doing. So they were there just to answer on specific campaigns or to do outbound telemarketing. So today, the difference is that we really do refer to them, and we want to do so as a customer contact center. So meaning they're not there anymore to simply wait on the phone to ring from an ad. They're really there, and to some extent to support customers from various touch points, and they can even support through their daily shifts a different points of contact based on volume. So you can leverage your contact center by having an agent covering, let's say, call volumes in priority, and afterwards going to emails. And for some more experienced reps, you can even have them manage numerous discussions at once through the chats. So what I hear from this key insight is that your customers gonna want to get in touch with you. So now more than ever, it's really important to reflect on your channel strategy. Like, ensure you have you offer your customer the proper channel, and you are mostly effective in the way you support them through those channels. And it's basically important to select them so you can have a relationship other than through your regular branches, stores, and websites.
Absolutely. Second insight that we found is, well, we kind of expected this because this is how the industry has evolved over time. When we asked people, last time you talked to customer service or you needed to contact a brand, which channel did you use? Still, 43% said, I basically called. So telephone is still the number one means of contacting brands today. However, 1 in 5 said, I used the chat function. 1 in 8 said, I used email. 1 in 10 said, I used SMS to contact a brand. 5% said, I actually used their social media page to get in contact with them. So we've seen this multiplication of platforms that people are using to get in contact with brands, even though we're still, for about half of the customers we talk to, we are still sort of in a call center world.
Yes, we are. And again, I will link that to the fact that resolution is the main end goal of the customer. So here, when we think about the phone, it's probably the best way for an individual to express their intent, to share their need, to explain their personal situation or conflict, or when you need clarification, pretty much the phone becomes the best way to make it clear, and in return get some clear and personalized, mostly answered. So you meet easily, or maybe more easily, the two most important dimensions driving your satisfaction through this means of communication. But again, what is important to remember is that regardless of the touch point or the channel you decide to offer your customer, just make sure that you can act on it and be efficient with this channel. Because when you look at it, there's pretty much two elements that will allow a company to drive a positive or even a memorable customer experience. So you have all the elements that are, of course, through the, in French we say savoir-être, or so the quality of the execution or the attitude delivered through the connection with the agents. But there's also all the elements around the management of a productive and operational efficiency from your contact center. So so again, having a solid operational structure is a way to manage the incoming questions and meeting the most important dimensions. So some thoughts quickly, like you can ask yourself, do you offer the means of communication that are the ones preferred by your customer? When you offer them, is it in the right coverage, or are you available at moments and key times that your clientele wishes to reach you? Are you prepared to manage the volumes when they come in? So do you use tools like workforce management? Do you plan your agent shifts as per the volumes, but also the service level you want to deliver? How are they equipped, your reps, on each of those touch points to be able to provide the proper answer, or the answers in the time? Because my expectation to receive an answer through chat is much smaller. Well, in terms of times, I mean, if times of response is much smaller on the chat versus phone. So if you make the tool so difficult for the agents handling 2, 3, 4 chats, let alone answering only one, your customer is going to drop the chat box. So all these elements about contact center management, who often are seen as financially beneficial. Well, yes, having the right structure and being efficient will for sure generate cost saving, but mostly it will contribute to being effective, being able to answer your customers' expectation, resolving their questions, and therefore generating engagement to your brand through that.
When we get to our third insight, I mean, so how did you contact a brand, and then for what reason did you want to call or chat with customer contact center at a brand? Purchase is now number one. And again, this could be influenced by the context of the pandemic, because when we look at our overall data, it is a number one reason. Almost 3 out of 10 said, I called customer contact or customer service or chatted to make a purchase. Second reason, about 1 in 8 also said, I just needed pre or post-purchase information regarding my product or my delivery. Third is, I wanted to return, cancel, or basically call about a specific order with a brand. In fourth place, 1 in 10 said it was only a billing issue, or it was a billing issue. And then almost 1 in 10 say, I wanted to lodge a complaint. I wanted to express a certain level of dissatisfaction. So there is a myriad of reasons why you would call customer service or contact after sales support, but purchase is now the number one reason.
Yeah, and to that, what I find interesting, there are 2 aspects that caught my attention on this one. Is really the different reasons for contacting, but also you'll see in the generic report that you will receive after the webinar, that there's also a level of satisfaction associated with the different reasons of contacting. So for a start, let's focus on how can you prepare to deliver a memorable or a distinctive experience. Well, at the latest, a positive experience, depending on the different reasons for contacting your company. So again, I go back to the structure of your customer contact center. Make sure that you structure the handling of the purchasing questions or the product questions around its complexity. So meaning, like, do you need to have specialized queues? Do you need to have a different skill set in your agent? So do you need someone more technical? Do you need someone more empathetic? So really focus on the nature, the complexity of your product, so that you send your customers to the experts. Or if it's more generic, just make sure you give the tools to your agents so they can access product definitions or powerful search engine to search in the systems. Sometimes they can have access to catalogs, more visuals, or more in-depth description. Anything that can help them support and making sure, as the purchase being the main reason, you want to make sure that either with the contact, they close the gap to turn the I'm not sure into an actual sale, or you want to make sure that they help the customer enjoy your product and service, so they use it in the proper way, so it generates retention. In the case of returns, exchange, or even cancellation, it's also important to, again, to deliver the best experience possible. It's important to make sure that it's clear who does what and how. So it means the agent that is receiving the chat, the email, or the phone, he's either one who has to approve if in fact they're going to say yes to the return or the exchange or the cancellation. If so, what do they have at their disposal to evaluate the customer's request? How are they coached and trained to communicate this decision to the customers? So these are all things that may sound basic, but they're actually difficult when you're an agent with a level of responsibility, no tools, and not being trained at all in receiving a potential frustration from the customer on the other end of the line or the chat. Especially chats and phone can have cruel ways from the customer to express their dissatisfaction. So all of these motives for contacting you are important to understand from your end, so you can prepare your agents, regardless of the channel they support, to provide a solid and brand promise related customer experience. So to close on that aspect, I would say just make sure as well that the quality monitoring is in place and is not neglected. You'd be surprised how often this step of the or this key element to the customer satisfaction and experience is overlooked. Sometimes for good reason, other priorities, lacking of staff, etc. But still, it's important to take the time to monitor and listen to calls, but also to read some of the written communications that your agents have. So how do they present, explain, what are the words they choose to use to present the situation? Are they so unclear in a written way that you need 8 exchanges instead of 2 to go to the same point? So all of this is very important to look at.
We had already talked a little bit earlier when we were presenting the 11 dimensions of the model, that problem resolution had the highest impact on overall satisfaction out of the 11 variables that go into the model. Number 2 we'd mention as well is to get a response or an answer from the brand that was actually personalized and was about my own individual need. And the third was, how do we follow up in terms of after sales? There's not one of the dimensions that we measure that is negligible in terms of its impact on overall satisfaction. But in last place, interestingly enough, in last place was the actual wait time before I get to speak or chat with somebody. However, almost like price, if you're shopping in a store, price may not be the #1 criteria why you buy or not a garment, for example, but price is always important. And we'll talk about wait times a little bit later on. But clearly we have sort of a 1, 2, 3 punch, which is problem resolution, followed by obtaining a personalized response, and third, good follow-up after the actual conversation.
Yes, and I'm coming in also with the 3 key components. But you're right, these 3 dimensions are directly linked to what compose a customer experience. we always refer to customer experience as the emotions that are felt or even just perceived by a customer through his journey. But truthfully, there are three components leading to customer experience. So yes, the emotions, how I felt through the process, but there's also effort. So how easy was it to deal with the organization, and the success. So effort, success, and emotions are the three things that contribute to generating the customer experience. So it makes total sense that we hear that at the moment where I need your support, I need your help, I expect to be in a better position after contacting you than before. And really, even if you look at it, it's not only the satisfaction that's at stake when they seek for resolution. It's also basically the loyalty. Statistics show that of customers who leave a business without ever coming back, the main reasons for 68% of them is that they didn't feel important for the organization. So I would say that just make sure that resolving the issues, small or big, make it a priority in your with your customer contact center.
Perfect. A fifth key insight is when we actually rank our sectors in terms of benchmarking on overall satisfaction. I guess our podium would be eyewear in first place, banking in second, pharmacy in third, and just off the podium would be insurance. And if you look at our ranking of the 16 sectors and flip it around, at the bottom, what we have are department stores, clothing and apparel, shoe stores, and jewelry stores, and telco. At the bottom of the ranking. And when we looked at these figures, Isabelle, you were telling me that you were not all that surprised that eyewear, banking, pharmacy would be at the top.
Yeah, the main reason being that first off, these sectors are not only service related, but they're also in sectors where you're already taking care of your customer. So you already have this urge in making sure that you're going to deliver the best solution possible, whether it's because it's related to financial transaction or about your health, your well-being. So that may easily explain why the moment I need to get in touch with you, whether it's again through mail, through chat or telephone, that your employees already have those best practice in place to really make sure they understand and deliver the best answer possible. Now, for the ones that do less well, if I may, one possible lead for trying to explain that is that usually I feel that for those sectors that you've listed, the store is often the place where the customers seek for support. So, for example, if I have a question on the furniture I just bought, or an item of clothing, or something is not functioning properly, I often think about going back to the store to speak with someone from this department, or mainly trying to maybe see if the salesperson who sold me the product is there that day. Or if I don't want to go to the store, I will look online for the branch phone number. So I would say that for the majority of those sectors, the customer contact center has historically been used to mostly handle complaints, or even for a lot of them, the banner credit card product, or to support their vendors, their own vendors for the merchandise. So that's probably why, in a context like the pandemic, where stores were closed, the call center was now the only reference. But being more of a head office contact center than a customer service, that's probably why people couldn't get as precise or personalized answers from those employees. So this learning, I would say that the key takeaway is really to ask yourself, not only if you have the proper customer-centric culture within your contact center, but is your operational structure truly omni-channel, so that you make sure you can have one single conversation with your customer regardless of the time or the channel used? Or if you are only multi-channel, which is good, but that just means that you, while offering various touch points or channels through which your customer can have this discussion with you, it means that they're all separate discussions. So that makes it harder to deliver a simple and personalized resolution.
A sixth insight is what very often when we found that people were very satisfied with the actual customer service agent they spoke to on the phone or chatted with through the chat function at the brand, we often found that numerous brands kind of failed at the follow-up stage. Basically, you drive a lot of satisfaction when talking to the customers, but then you let them you let them down when it actually comes to the follow-up and the follow-through.
Yes, and it's easy to understand now at this stage of the webinar why if the follow-up can be unsatisfactory, because follow-up is pretty much about bringing me resolution. It's just that you couldn't do it the first time I got in touch with you, but you committed to doing so at a later stage. So other than for the top leaders in CX, where they will see the follow-up stage as really an opportunity of showing you care. So following up with, you've had our product for X days, X weeks, X month now. How do you feel about it? Is everything okay? Follow-up is mainly seen in cases where I can't proceed with a first contact resolution. So another important that we talked about earlier is the fact that almost 7 out of 10 people who left or stopped dealing with a brand was because they didn't feel important for them. So when you decide that your company is going to offer follow-up, meaning you're going to allow your agents to not only receive incoming communications from your customers, but allowing them to go back, take time offline, or write back. Well, make sure they will be in a position to do so at the time expected. And sometimes it's just as easy as making sure that they have access to a CRM and they're coached to enter everything within the CRM. Because if all my notes are in Post-its or in my notebooks on my desk, and the day I'm supposed to call back my customer, I'm sick, or I didn't even check if I was working, for sure the customer is going to call back because he's going to feel that you didn't stick to your commitment, and whoever is going to receive his email or phone call is not going to be able to follow up because there will be no trace of what the follow-up was about. So again, make sure that if you decide to just follow up to the sales process, make sure that when I log in, I'm not going to see a date from 3 weeks ago. So you really want to invest in making sure that regardless of the means you select, whether it's through technology or through your reps, that the process in place and the information flow is optimal.
One last one. We've already talked about wait time. However, one thing that we also found is that the longer somebody waited, the less satisfied they were at the end of the process. Again, not meaning that the wait time is the most important aspect of the conversation that they had, but however, it sort of negatively influences how they perceive the brand later on in the conversation. It's making that fuse shorter, so to speak.
Mm. Yes, definitely. It's always good to be able to answer your customers' requests in the latest time possible. And as I said, even more so if the channel selected is chat. I think if I remember correctly, if you haven't done anything under 10 or 20 seconds, they already think you're not there. There's no one, and they're almost gone to another site because they expect to have an instant answer. So not to focus on the sector who's worse, but mostly on tips on how to make sure that we don't get there. I would just go back to, again, the making sure you manage your in-call volume. So make sure you know about you have systems that makes you aware of your statistics, your volumes. So everything is integrated. Make sure you plan your resources accordingly, and also make sure you train your agents on being efficient in doing their job. Because if I answer the chat in 5.8 seconds, but when I'm through with chatting with you, I resolved your issue, but then I need to be unavailable for 3 minutes because I have 4 forms to fill out internally to complete the actual customer's request. Well, that means I'm not available to answer other people's chats. So it's not a win-win situation. You regenerate the traffic in your queue. So optimize your operational structure, and even if you want to work above stream, like you want to make sure that you optimize your website information, you offer as many self-serve solutions as you can to your clientele. So this way you limit the number of by knowing what are your questions, main questions about your motive of contacting you, then you can also through other ways reduce the number of incoming volume.
Okay, perfect. I know that Isabelle wanted to, because a lot of people on the webinar probably are familiar with Blanchet, sort of the market research company, but you wanted to say a few words about what Blanchet Metrics specifically does and what the service offer is, and then we'll get to the Q&A. And again, if you want to ask questions, there is a questions tab on the panel of the platform where you can just click and insert your questions. I see a couple there already, so we'll get to those in a couple of minutes, but Isabelle will tell us a little bit about what Blanchet Matrix does for a living.
Yes, and I really don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I just wanted to explain, as Christian introduced, why we decided to take this format today. Is really to show that the Blanchet Metrics, so the CX practice that was just launched last February, so close to a year ago, we started reflecting on that piece, is really to offer you the possibility that once research has established who in your clientele thinks what, or who behaves how and when and why, then the metrics team can come in to help you to act on this data and mostly operationalize on the insight, so you can really transform or improve your customer experience that is being delivered. So we'll basically help you work on the 4 pillars of the customer experience management. So the customer-centric culture, the the organizational structure, as I said, yes, operationally, but also from the decision taking, is the customer vision taken into consideration? Are processes and policies align with the type of customer vision that you have? Everything that's around listening and acting, so feedback collection and action is really inner loop, outer loop. So meaning not only the quick coaching and checking back on a detractor, but making sure that there's a committee discussing CX results and making sure that it becomes continuous improvement projects within the organization. Because the goal, as I was saying earlier today, is not only to set a solid customer experience strategy and culture. It's to make sure that in 5 months, 5 years, 10 years from now, if you're no longer there and through employee attrition, you continuously deliver on that brand promise and experience. So the measurement also of the CX initiatives and the impact it has on the organization results is part of what we can do, and that we can do as you want it to be. So depending on your resources and your needs and your budget, there's not a one-fits-all way to do things. So if you have the resource to make it happen, but you're just not sure, you want to tie in some stuff around strategy, will be there. If on the opposite, you know how to tackle things, but you just don't have enough resources or no resources at all to get it done, or you have resources but you want to get it done by a certain time, so you would need more help in delivering more activities at the same time, that can work out as well. And of course, the third way is a combination of the two. So if you just need us from start to finish, this is the way that we can help. And you've seen a little bit today with this webinar how it can actually takes form from the research insights to planning, the operationalization of the results. So
Okay.
now for questions.
Yeah. And we are, as you mentioned in the document, in an experiential economy. So CX needs to be at the core of what you do, if you wish to survive
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah,
I
it's no longer about your product characteristics or your price. Nah, we're past that. People are now
absolutely.
willing to pay $6 or $7 for a coffee or $200 for a happy birthday event, when previously mothers were just taking eggs and flour and preparing the cake themselves, and that was the big party for the birthday. So it
Yeah.
evolved a lot.
We have about 5 minutes for questions, because we do want to allow you a little bit of a break before you start your afternoon. And thank you for joining us on your lunchtime as well. One question somebody is asking, the model offers sectoral benchmarks, but aren't we all compared to the very best of the best? And if I'm not an Amazon with a no hassle return policy, and whatnot, how can I compete with the best?
Well, we had that question, a French webinar this morning, and what
It's
I
true, yeah.
was, yeah, and what I wanted to share is that it's true. You're right. Like, our first thought is always to look at the best ones and try to make this our end goal. First of all, I would encourage you to just be realistic. Like, becoming part of the leaders of customer experience is a long journey. It's something very exciting, but it takes a lot of hard work and effort. So I would say the first key thing to do is just to make sure you deliver on your own brand promise. So do you even have one? Is this the first question to ask yourself? So most of you guys have your mission, so what you want to be, why you do business, your vision, where you want to go as an organization, where you want to take your clientele to. But it's really important to also have your brand promise. So it's all coming from your mission, vision, your corporate values. Like, what do you want to commit to your clientele? So it can be tangible, intangible, but make sure you have one statement that summarizes what you want to be for your customers, what you engage with your clientele. Make sure it's declined into appropriate attitude and behaviors for all of your company employees. For sure, the contact center employees will be the very first one to test it and make it happen. But you also have other key roles in the organization that, while they are backstage, they have a great influence on information or stuff or things that the frontline or the customer facing employees will have to use. So that needs to be all aligned if you want, in the end, the customer to have be able to say that, you know what, they really deliver. So at first, just make sure that whatever you promise, you deliver on it. After that, you can start dreaming bigger and introducing some of the best practices. But really, I'm telling you, delivering on your brand promise every day with every single channel, through with every single customers, regardless of the channel, regardless of the employee who's involved. This is really a great accomplishment that you should be first proud of.
Perfect. Final question is, and we got a similar question when we were talking about the other WOW studies that we have. Is, of course, we all have seen how there's a digital shift throughout the pandemic because of the restrictions in place in different provinces. Will customers, when it's over, and hopefully as soon as possible, but will they go back to their old habits, or have we changed forever as customers because of this pandemic?
I think it's a mix of both. Like, for sure, when we go back to, or as close as possible to what was our normal lives before, we'll probably just so excited we want to see people, interact with people. So maybe there will be a trend to going back um, to social interacting rather than leveraging the web and the contact centers. But I'm tempted to say, and I think you had some numbers on that in your research studies earlier this year, is that some customers have really happened or started to like these new channels that they've started to use, and have said they would want to continue using them. Um, so bottom line, I think it comes back to just making sure that you get to know your customers, you understand what they like, how they want to deal with you, and afterwards, just make sure that you set yourself for success. So you structure your organization, your process, your employees training, in delivering your brand promise across all of those channels, whatever they will be.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Isabelle. Again, thank you, everybody, for taking the time today to be with us. If you want more information about the detailed study that comes with what we presented today, make sure you just drop a line to Isabelle, and we'll get that to you as well. And well, I guess enjoy the weekend. Thank you, everybody. Merci, Isabelle.
Merci. Thank you, everyone.